Hello, good morning, and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you had a good week. All right, we've got some things to talk about this week. Slightly narcissistically, all the things we're talking about this week are blog posts from my blog, which is not how I planned it at all. Hopefully, if you're watching this for the first time, you don't come away with the impression it's always like this. Quite often there's lots of other blogs and things to talk about. It's just this week there was quite a lot of news that I wrote blogs about and did videos about, so it's just kind of the way it worked out. So let's talk about some things. So last time we spoke, and I think possibly the time before actually as well, we spoke about Microsoft Build because that is coming up soon. And I've got some exciting news to share with you about that. I'm going to be speaking at Microsoft Build this year. So very excited about that. And what I'm more excited about actually is that it's not just a me just talking at you session. I think those are good. I think those work. I think they work less well when it's online, actually. I think this format that I'm going to be doing works better for online-only sessions, which is a much more collaborative, it's a connection zone setting. It's going to be more of a discussion. It's going to be participation. If you show up, I want you to show up with questions. I want you to come off mute and talk to me and tell me that you disagree with what I'm saying and that I'm talking rubbish, or that you agree with me and here's an example of why. And let's talk about this stuff. So I'm going to be talking specifically about how we can help more non-developers write Microsoft Teams apps, because I think that is interesting and important. We have all this tooling for non-developers, so low code, no code, the Power Platform. We have bots, we have Power Virtual Agents, we have all of this tooling to allow people who are not professionally trained developers to participate and create solutions that are right for them. And sometimes that works really well. What I find a lot, though, is that actually those tools are not being used by the right people. They're not being used by those people in the business who really understand how the business runs and could really benefit from those productivity tools. And that's what I'm trying to solve with this session. So I want to understand why that is, and I want to understand what the blockers are and how we can help remove some of those blockers to help more people get involved in some of these tools. So if you run teams of people who include non-developers and business professionals who are not IT specialists, if you manage IT for a large organization that includes lots of different kind of business owners, domain experts, and power users and things like that, and this kind of chimes with what I'm saying, chimes with what you're seeing, please show up. It'd be great to see you. It'd be great to get the input of your expertise and your experience. I want to understand that stuff. Let's just have a big discussion about it. It's only 30 minutes. It won't take a lot out of your day. And it's one of those sessions where it'd be really good if you could show up live, because then we'll really be able to have a really good conversation about it. So that is happening at Microsoft Build in a couple of weeks' time, May the 24th, in fact. So it's happening at 7:30 p.m. BST time, so that's 18:30 UTC. It's 11:30 a.m. Pacific. Other time zones are available. But yeah, go check that out on the Build session scheduler, which brings me nicely to the next thing I want to talk to you about, which is that the Microsoft Build session scheduler for 2022 is live and available, and you should be using it to go and choose the sessions you want to watch at this year's Build. So you can go and check it out for yourself now. It's around, so it's out, it's live, it's searchable. So there's two ways you can use it, right? And this is just a screenshot here, but you can search sessions across the top. So you can search by title, by product, by speaker's name, whatever. And then you can also, if you don't want to do that, you can also refine your results down the left-hand side by type. So you can go by product, so you can find all the Microsoft Teams sessions. You can find all the breakout sessions or all the connection zone sessions. It was interesting. So I went through just a little bit of detail in this blog post around the makeup of some of the sessions. I thought it was kind of interesting. Some are more, there's the percentages of which are like the more collaborative connection zone ones that I was just talking about versus kind of just stand and deliver keynotes or breakouts. And also the product mix is interesting. Like nearly 50% of the content is on Azure, which is kind of not a surprise really, because it's a pretty big play for Microsoft, especially in the developer space. So it's not that surprising to see so much content on Azure. And then the second and third place is a Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. Again, not a big surprise, I don't think. There are a couple of things to pull out, and there's two things in this blog post, and then I go into a lot more detail in the next blog post as well. So there's two things here, two sessions I just wanted to draw your attention to that I thought were interesting. So one of them is Charles Lamanna. So he is in charge of Power Platform. Jeff Teeper, he is in charge of Teams, but they're both CVPs. So they're both talking together in the same session. And I thought that was interesting because maybe it means we'll see more integration stuff between Power Platform and low code with Microsoft Teams. Again, kind of playing in with the session I'm doing. Kind of, maybe there'd be more tools. We can talk about those if they get announced. I'm not sure the timings of these sessions. Whether or not like the order of where my one comes versus Charles and Jeff's is, but whatever. I think that'll be interesting. The other one to talk through, which I thought was interesting, is Panos Panay, who is talking with Kevin Gallo. So Panos Panay runs Windows and devices at Microsoft. He's in charge of Windows. Kevin Gallo, he's CVP for developer platform, so he runs the dev platform. And there's some others as well. I just wanted to call out those two specifically for this session, just because I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't know, like it's a vague description. Panos doesn't normally stand up and talk at a developer event about Windows, so I'm not really sure where that's going. I think it's one to watch because it might be an announcement session, just because it's so vague and it's such an odd collection of speakers. So check that one out if you're interested. Speaking of things to check out, that brings me ever so nicely, almost like I planned it, onto my third blog post to talk about this week, which is 20 Microsoft Build sessions not to miss this year. So, having told you all about the session scheduler, you can go and check that out for yourself. I've already done that, and I've come up with 20 sessions that I think you might find quite interesting. So, you don't have to watch all of these, but I want to you to be aware that they exist and that they are happening, because I think you might find them interesting. So I've split them into 5 different sections. There's an overview section, there's a deep dive section, there's a roundtable section, there's one for new announcements, and then there's kind of like a here's an everything else section. I think the everything else section just contains those 2 things I just spoke about, so you can kind of skip over that if you've already added those. There's a whole video about it. I go through every session and talk through why I chose it and why I think it's interesting. You can go and check that out. And then I've listed all of the sessions and links to them in the session scheduler as well. So if you just want to very quickly kind of scan down, for instance, if you just want to do some catch up, if the reason you listen to this is just to keep on top of everything that's happening in the Microsoft Teams platform world, check out the overview and catching up sections, because there's some really good sessions there. For instance, everything new you need to know about the Microsoft Teams platform in 30 minutes or less. A perfect session, if you just want to get the overview, if you want the high level, just understand the capabilities of what's available without really digging into the detail, that is a perfect session. There is a whole section on the detail of some of these announcements, so things that have already been announced in the past couple of months, since the last build really, but going into some real detail about them. There's a whole bunch of sessions all about that. There's some roundtable sessions. There's a new announcement session. Again, I don't know they're going to be new announcements. This is me guessing. And I talk about that a little bit in the video. But they're things that are either new or I think might be new when they get talked about. And then there's this other things section, including that Panos Panay one, including one about Kyoto, which is super interesting as well. So, plenty to look at in the build schedule this year. Plenty of sessions to get involved in. I highly recommend blocking off some time in your calendar if at all you can. Don't try and multitask it with the regular flow of things that's going on. If you can carve out some dedicated time, 100% worth it. It's what you would do if you're going to an in-person session. So don't beat yourself up. Don't make it hard on yourself by trying to attend a session at the same time as work, because you wouldn't do that for an in-person. Try and block some time if at all possible. I know it's hard. I know people don't respect your calendars. I don't know what to do about it either. All right. Last thing I want to talk about is a blog post I put out just this morning, actually. I wrote it yesterday, but put it out this morning around some changes to the Microsoft Graph, specifically in the beta endpoint, and some new functionality. Not really new functionality, but a new enablement of an existing functionality. So currently in the V1 namespace, you can look at the number of the different chats, so Microsoft Team chats that a user is involved in and is taking part in. You can do that in the API by making a call to like users/user-ID/chats. But that's only delegated permissions. So what does that mean? It means the user has to be signed in. You have to have the user there. They have to have completed the sign-in process. And then you can see their chats as the application. The application can then see their chats. There isn't a way for an application like that to go and see someone else's chats without having that user already sign in. So that's user permissions. The new thing that's come is that this is in just the beta namespace at the moment, application permissions for this same call have been enabled. So what does that mean? Application permissions mean that the user doesn't need to be present. And it means that the application can do /user/any user you want /chats and get the chat, get the list of chats that user is involved in or taking part in, but in a kind of headless, user doesn't need to be present utility sort of way. So this is good if you want to have an application that wants to iterate through all of your users and get all of the chats that they're involved in and do something with that, like back it up or monitor it or report on it or all of these other things that you want to do across the entire tenant without having a user log into an application every day or something like that. So this is really good. In general, developers like application level permissions because they give a lot of freedom and they're very powerful. IT people less so because they're a bigger security risk, because an application permission has access to every user in the tenant, no exceptions, whereas delegated, that user permission, you're really just operating, your application is really just operating in the scope of the user that's already logged on. So the permission scope is the same as if it was the user performing the activity. So that's how they differ. But this is a good opening up of some of the existing API functionality. It will open it up for other use cases. So that might be of use to you if you're writing something that is in that kind of monitoring space or backup space or auditing space or reporting, then you might find this useful. It's in the beta namespace right now. There's no kind of announcement about it that I could find, but it's updated in the documentation, so you can go and check it out. I don't know when it will come to the V1 namespace, so if you're waiting on that, you might be waiting a bit longer. But if you could definitely go and check it out. You could write your code and test it against the beta endpoint if you wanted to. All right, I think that is everything that is happening for this week. There is a lot going on. We are definitely in that kind of coming up to build. I feel like there will be more announcements coming out, or not so much announcements, but like gearing up of things for build, so that things come out when that happens. This week is going to be a busy week. So Thursday this week, I'm going to be at a conference. I'm not talking, I'm just attending, but it is exciting because it's the first Microsoft conference for a while that I will have attended because of everything that's going on. So it's Microsoft Envision UK happening in London on Thursday. So that is a good one. And it's also going to be a busy week for some other things that are coming, but I won't spoil those. You'll just have to wait for them. Yeah, that's it, I think. Whatever it is you're doing, I hope you have a busy and productive and happy week. And I will talk to you again next time.